the Everything But Politics podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. It is the Everything But Politics episode 171 with owner and founder of Walt Grace Vintage Cars and Guitars, Bill Goldstein. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
Thank you for having
Welcome to Walt Grace.
Yeah.
Thanks
I want
for
to dive right in with Walt Grace, right?
Okay.
How did Walt Grace come to be?
Okay. I mean, long story. How much time we have?
Hey, as long as you, yeah.
All right. So Walt Grace, oh, wow. Where do I start? So I was in the advertising business for the better part of 25 years. And kind of the more successful I got, the further I got away from kind of that art major who was carrying, wet oil paints on the L train in Manhattan, wetting all the suits. And like I said, I went to art school. I wasn't a business guy. I was an artist. And, the starving artist thing kind of turned out not to be for me. But I did stay in the arts, and I also stayed in the creative side of it. So in 1991, I incorporated what is recognized as one of, if not the first digital advertising agency ever.
Wow.
So it was strictly digital advertising. Back then we called it interactive. And so it was really exciting to me. It was creative every day. There wasn't a road that had been paved before by other people. Every day we were recreating the wheel. If you wanted to, get video to play on a PC, great. You spent, months figuring that out. And then, okay, now figure out how to make it work on a Macintosh. Because Macintosh it was such a more capable machine for graphics and video and all of that back then. Now they're, people will tell you they're neck and neck, but they'll never be. So anyway, so there was creativity in all that I did. Even though I wasn't painting canvases any longer, I was creative, and it was creative solutions. And then there was a lot of creativity because it wasn't just the creative output of what we were doing; it was the creative solving business problems for our clients as well. So the more successful I got over the years, kind of the less I actually got to do any of that. So, the money became, I don't want to say enough because it's never enough, right? But the money became enough early on, and my currency was creativity. Like that was my outlet. That was what I needed to be happy. Like I said, the further along I got in my career, some acquisitions and life changes, and I found myself down in Florida as really just an executive, even though I had a cushy creative leaning title to my job. I was the global director of creative strategy for Sapient Nitro, which is one of the largest ad networks in the world. 10,000 employees, 36 offices around the world, public company. But my role was that of just flying around to all of those offices and meeting with clients and talking about advertising, talking about creativity, talking about strategy rather than actually doing it. So, I kicked around for years, just miserable. And, people were like, oh, poor guy, you don't know what color Porsche to buy. And it really, I get that. But at the same time, they didn't get me. They didn't get, people always assume success is defined by your bank account or by your title on your business card. And for me, it really wasn't that at all. I was just miserable because I didn't have a creative outlet. It was so busy. I wasn't playing music. I wasn't creating ads. I wasn't doing anything, nothing. Yeah. So, but the one kind of flaw in all of it was I just thought, I was an ad guy. I had always been an ad guy. I'll just always be an ad guy, right? So I never really thought I could stop. I was always trying to find my happiness in this career that at this point I was just miserable. And as a matter of fact, my girlfriend at the time, I said to her, it was her birthday in July, and I said, what do you want for your birthday? And she said, I want you to quit your job. Okay. Wow. And what girlfriend has ever said that? And she's like, because we're all just miserable. You're miserable. We're miserable. I have 2 daughters, and, I'm one of those people that if I'm happy, you're happy. If I'm sad, you're sad. Because I see to it, I'm just woe's me. And I was just miserable. So, I'll jump to the Walt Grace,
take your time.
We skipped a lot of the story, but, I didn't go to bed the night before or wake up that morning saying, I'm going to quit my very lucrative 25-year career. I was in the shower, just like, all great
Ideas come to be.
All ideas come to be. And I got in the shower, and my girlfriend, same girlfriend who wanted me to quit her job, had left on the Sonos on, some Pandora station, which I tell the story that it was like Matchbox 20 radio or something. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't my type of music. Nothing against Matchbox 20, but it wasn't, blues, and it wasn't classic rock. And I actually, more than considered, I was planning to get out of the shower and turn on Howard Stern because it was the morning. And instead, this song came on, and I hear like this really out of character for the station. I hear this, trumpet kind of horn thing, and it's kind of like Milesy, and it's just really, I said, whoa, what is this? This is really cool. And it was like nothing I had heard, and nothing I certainly would expect to hear on this radio station. So I decided, okay, well, maybe I don't need to listen to that. Let me hear this. And I'm listening, and then I hear this resonator guitar. And I'm like, ooh, I love this. What the fuck? Like, what is this? Can I curse on this show?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I don't mean to. No. I don't plan to, but
Hey, if it happens, it happens.
Yeah, okay. Good. So I'm listening, loving the music, and all of a sudden the lyrics come on. And as you guys know the story, but for your viewers, I'll leave the suspense. I hear the lyrics, and it's a story, and it's about a guy just like me who's desperately hating his whole life and his whole situation. And in the song, this guy wants to build a homemade submarine. And I'm thinking to myself, or more than thinking to myself, I'm talking to myself. I'm in there lathering up, and I'm like, submarine. I started an interactive agency in 91. When this was interactive, people, I didn't just have the challenge of starting a business or getting known in an industry. I had to explain what this was. People were like, Lou Gerstner from IBM, the CEO of IBM, said to me once, I didn't think you were crazy because you thought people were going to shop from home. I thought you were crazy because you thought people were going to have computers in their homes. And that was the CEO of IBM in the 90s. So it was really this... just like saying you're going to build a homemade submarine in your basement, what I was doing was just as crazy. And just like the song, it said his wife told his kids he was crazy, and his friends said he'd fail if he'd try. It said, but with the will to work hard and a library card, he took a homemade one-man fan blade submarine ride. And I'm like, oh my God, this is me. His wife told his kids he was crazy. Hello. His friends said he'd fail if he'd try. There was literally interventions. When I was in school, like my senior portfolio teachers offering me these crazy jobs to work in a traditional advertising. By the way, I was an advertising major in school. I was a fine arts major originally, switched to illustration. By the time I graduated, I was a dual major, advertising and graphic design. So I was getting offered jobs while I was still in school, in traditional advertising. And I was like, no, thanks. I'm going to do this crazy thing. So there was literally, your wife told the kids you was crazy. Friends said, fail if you try. And then it said, but with the will to work hard and a library card, he took a homemade one-man fan blade submarine ride. And just to go back to something we were talking about before the cameras were rolling, you asked about me building guitars. Back then, there was no internet. I was a 17-year-old kid. I wanted to know how to build guitars. Well, guess what I did? With the will to work hard, the library card, I took a book out, So You Want to Build an Electric Guitar, and I built an electric guitar in my stairwell in Manhattan when at the time. And that's how I learned how to build guitars. So it really resonated with me, this whole idea of the will to work hard and the library card. So I'm listening to the words, and I couldn't, I have the shower on, and I have the speaker that was just supposed to be background music. So I turned the water off, and so I could hear the lyrics. Because I was like, I'm not a religious guy, but I was like, this is the universe talking to me. Listen to the fucking signs, Bill. So I turned off the water so I could hear the lyric. And just as I turned off the lyric, like it was scripted in a movie, like someone was directing this moment, the chorus came on and it said, when you're done with this world, the next is up to you. And I said, holy fucking shit. It is up to me. Like I said before, I was an ad guy. I'd always been an ad guy. I'll just always be an ad guy. For someone that fancies themselves a pretty smart guy, it never dawned on me. Just stop, right? Just stop. I'm trying to find my happiness in this career that I identified as or with. Everyone, thought, oh, Bill's this, Bill's that. I was like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. Never once did I think, just stop. Just, this self-imposed prison that you made, just open the door. It's unlocked, man. Just fucking walk out and do something else. And it took this simple song in the shower. When you're done with this world, the next is up to you. And so I turned the water back on, rinsed off the soap, got out of the shower, dried off my iPhone swiping finger and unlocked my phone. And I said, I quit. I'm done.
You called right then?
I called right then and there, naked in the bathroom. And they're like, where are you going? What are you doing? Because in the advertising business, it's very popular to leave and go to another agency.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not going to another agency. I'm going to go find my submarine. Okay.
Yeah.
And they said, okay, now you're scaring us. Where are you? We'll be right there. And I looked down and I'm still standing in the bathroom, just got out of the shower. I was like, trust me, you do not want to come where I am right now, but I've never been better. I'm not leaving tomorrow. I'm going to go find my submarine.
And what was it? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. So when I finally convinced them that I wasn't standing on a ledge somewhere about to end it all, I hung up the phone and I was shaking. I was like, I didn't just quit a job. I quit a career. I quit a lifetime of identity. I quit a lifetime of who people saw me as and everything. So I'm literally shaking. And I'm like, oh my God, what is my submarine, right? Like, what is my submarine?
Yeah.
Maybe I should have fucking thought of that before I just quit my job, right? So I, it didn't take too long for me to think, oh, hello, vintage guitars. I've been collecting vintage guitars my whole life. I'm a guitar player, collector, aficionado. I'll just buy and sell vintage guitars. I'll do it on eBay or whatever. I didn't think about this quite yet. This is all so rapid fire. And this is all happening in sequence as I'm telling the story. And I was like, as I'm like thinking how I'm going to start this guitar business, I'm like, oof, but I do have this unquenchable thirst and love and knowledge of air-cooled Porsches. Like, maybe I'll do something with cars. Maybe I'll do something with Porsche. Maybe I'll sell them out of the garage. I was like, oh fuck, do I do cars? Do I do guitars? And like a scene from a movie. Like couldn't script this. I'm not that good. I'm not that creative. Okay, for all of the accolades, I'm not that creative. This has all happened, and I said, like a movie. I heard the lyric that I'd only heard once. Okay, which was, when you're done with this world, the next is up to you. And I said, you know what? It is up to me. I'm going to open a car and guitar gallery. Okay, so not a car dealership, not a guitar store. I'm going to open a vintage car and guitar gallery celebrating the artistry, so not the utility of both vintage cars and guitars. And I'm going to open in the Wynwood Arts District, because back in the day, in 2014, when I'm having this moment, Wynwood wasn't like you see it now. It was just art galleries, because just like Soho in the late 60s, early 70s, it's big space, cheap rent, and artists can afford to be here and have huge canvases. Yeah. So this was the Arts District. So I said, I'm going to open in the Wynwood Arts District of Miami, and I'm going to call it Walt Grace Vintage. all in one. And the reason I called it Walt Grace Vintage, as you know, is the man in the song who was building his homemade submarine. His name was Walt Grace. Yeah. And, I owe everything to this fictitious character in this song. And the one part I left out of the sequence of the story is I stood there, which is even cooler for the story, and it's the truth. I stood there naked in the shower, and I said out loud, I said, I am Walt Grace. And here we are, 11 years later, and I have credit card offers to Walt Grace all the time. People think I am Walt Grace. So I am Walt Grace. So now we can talk about...
Well, yeah, my question really is, like, does John Mayer know about this? Has he been
here?
Oh,
very much does he know about this. He has not been here. 2 separate occasions he was supposed to come and ended up, for whatever reason, not coming. But yeah, I mean, he knows about us. Our watch partner in our vintage watches, Mental Watches, they're his watch dealer. So he talks, obviously, all the time about us and, whatever. He was coming down here one time, and then I don't know if you guys are big fans, so you know that he had appendicitis at one point down here, and had to cancel some Dead & Company shows. He was on his way here. I don't know if he was on his way here, but he was on his way here. And then just recently, not the last Art Basel before, when we had a big singer event, he was supposed to come, and he had to go back to LA, and his +1 still came. So
that's cool.
So he knows we exist, and but he hasn't been here yet.
He'll be around. He'll be around soon. Absolutely.
Every other musician and rock star in the world has been here. So absolutely. I think John will be here. And I actually have become friendly with his very dear friend Tony Held, who is the founder of InCase, the iPhone cases, and actually John's guitar case on the John Mayer signature model guitar. So Tony Held's been here more than once, and I've stayed in touch with Tony over the years. And that's John. I mean, I think I even saw an interview where John said that is his best friend.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's very, very, very aware of Walt Grace.
And I'm sure he loves the concept of cars, guitars, and watches
You
too.
would think, because most people do.
Right?
I've gotten lukewarm.
Who doesn't?
I've seen texts that he's been in about me and about us or
That's
about
cool.
me, and he doesn't seem very plussed on it. I don't know. So we'll see. Maybe he's just a very monotone text.
Totally. Well, Bill, there's two things I really want to uncover. So, for you, when did you kind of have that epiphany? Like, obviously, you quit, but like you could just do things, right? You kind of had that mindset. You kind of took the straight and narrow road a long time, and then you said, I don't have to do this.
Yeah, well, I never really took the straight and narrow road. The straight and narrow road kind of found me, and I was always like a caged animal in that. I always was a guy who drew outside of the lines. So even before I started, this early interactive multimedia agency, I had already I was one of the largest gray market Swatch dealers in the world when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
Swatch watches. Okay. So I've always been, and that's another cool story, but I just always had been this, like, there's an opportunity, not so much opportunistic as, I guess that's the true definition of opportunistic, but not, I wouldn't define myself as like looking for opportunities and glomming onto them. I've always saw opportunity, and just like listening to the universe in the shower that day, really kind of seized it. That's really the difference between me or people that do things or whatever, is really just having the nerve or the balls to just do it.
Yeah.
Now, in the early days, I still lived on, $175 a week that my parents gave me when I was in college, back in the early 90s. So starting a collectible Swatch watch business wasn't a big deal. I didn't have to worry about feeding kids or family or anything. And then, starting the interactive agency, I had the Swatch money to fund that. So even though it was probably 5 years, really 10 years before the rest of the world caught on to digital media, I was able to fund it for a little while. As a matter of fact, the story of that is I actually had to close the doors. And just as we had turned off the phones and were planning to just shutter the place, we get a phone call, and it was IBM. And they hired us to do the Atlanta Olympics for them. They had this woman, Abby Costans, was getting her nails done, I believe, and was talking about the problems they were having with technology at getting ready for the Atlanta Games. And a friend of ours, who was one of our very few clients, said to her, I know these kids, and they're doing this incredible stuff, and they can help you. And we got a phone call from Abby, and the rest really was history. We had a really long run, a really successful run, but we had already called, at the time it was called 9X, the New York telephone company, to turn off our phones. That's how down to the wire it got. Yeah.
So then when in your, let's say, mid to late 20s, did you feel yourself turning from a creative more so to an entrepreneur businessman?
Again, I found myself, nothing, it's intentional, but it's not intentional. Like I'm very much into like, see how it goes. Even when we talked before the cameras were rolling about my trips to Sturgis, I always take the same road up, but I never take the same road back because I'm on an adventure.
That's cool.
And that's kind of like, so there's certain things that I follow, certain, fiscally responsible things, but there's a lot of things, even as we grow and we look to bring more people in, as we expand to Nashville now. We're doing our first money raise ever. I've been entirely self-funded since day one, all of my businesses. So I've never taken investors, outside money or anything like that. But now we're doing that. And as we talk to, real people, I'm a liability. I have some really crazy things. This wall here is solid, Honduran mahogany. You know how cost ineffective that is to have solid mahogany walls? But I have it because it's what Gibson made Les Pauls out of. They still do to this day, but it's what they, Honduran mahogany was what they were made out of.
This guitar right here?
This guitar here, and even, 59 Les Pauls that are the $500,000 guitars. They're made out of Honduran mahogany. Wow. So all of our walls, all of our cash wraps, everything is made out of all tone woods.
Wow.
So that's an example of like my passion driving it, not being fiscally responsible and really not even being a good businessman. It's just stupid.
It's honestly honorable, like to honor the wood of the guitars that you're selling,
But-
in a sense.
Yeah, no, I agree,
Yeah.
100%. And that was the original plan. It was like, this was not it was a business, but it wasn't a business. It was like the business model at the time, because I'm so passionate about both of these things. It remind me to go back to that, being passionate about what you do for a living
Yeah.
kind of thing. And it's not what you think.
Okay.
But it started out, my business model was fantastic if I sell something, and even better if I don't.
That's funny.
Because I get to keep it, you know?
I get that.
And that was it. You know, this is what I did in my spare time when I wasn't in board meetings or traveling around.
Yeah.
Or even if I was in board meetings or traveling around, I was like, under there, I was on Reverb buying
Yeah,
guitars,
I get it.
you know, or on whatever,
Yeah.
you know, buying Porsches. And that was always my
love.
My love.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll jump to that so I don't forget. You know, people always, well, they think they know because they've heard it so many times. They always say, you know, if you do what you love for a living, you'll never work a day in your life, or some version of that. And I am here to tell you, okay, that is the most incorrect statement ever, okay? Because you're so passionate and you care so fucking much about this stuff. It takes on a whole new life, okay? So I've become, I don't want to say famous for, but I've become known for saying, do what you like for a living and save what you love for yourself, okay? Because these were my passions, and now it's my job, okay? So I used to, you know, vacation where I thought maybe I could find like an old cool church in the South, because I knew that there was going to be a record store nearby with old gospel records, and they were going to have like really crazy, beautiful guitars on that album cover. And then I could buy the record and go to the church and say, who is this?
Yeah.
And they'd say, oh, well, that's, you know, so-and-so. And, you know, I'm like, where is he? So, well, he's dead for a while, but his nephew lives up the road there, and you can go. And that was the fun shit of buying guitars, you know?
Yeah.
Now it's like, my guys come in and they're all excited, dude, we sold a 57 Strat. And I'm like, great. Now I have to go find another fucking 57 Strat. And it's going on the Walt Grace, so it has to be the best 57 Strat.
Yeah.
But I already just sold the best one. So how could I, you know, and it's like,
I get it.
And I care so much that it becomes like, it's not the best business model. And it's also how I used to escape, and now where do I escape to? You know, it's like,
Where do you escape to?
well, it's interesting. I never, as much as I've been a car aficionado, well, I can't say a car aficionado. That is the biggest misnomer ever. I am not even a car guy. Okay, if Porsche would rhyme with guitars, I probably would have said Porsche and guitars. But
That's funny.
Cars sounded so much better.
No doubt.
I am only a Porsche guy. I'm not a car guy. I actually don't like other cars. I don't care about other cars. I have the same view of every other car, and that goes for Ferraris and all the other cars you would assume that I love, and that we have on the floor here. I feel about those cars the same way most people feel about cars in general, that they're just transportation, or in their case, just a flashy whatever, designed for design's sake. Porsche to me it's a lesson in life. It's the idea of evolution, not revolution, kind of doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. And it's how I live my life. It's how I've raised my kids. It's like unceremoniously change it if it's not working, you know. And it's really what I did with Walt Grace in my career, but that was kind of ceremoniously. But you know, Porsche, if like the door handle is, people are, you know, sticking their hand on it, the next year it will no longer have that little indentation there. It's just quietly going to be, you know, changed.
Yeah.
And the wheelbase has changed, and this and that. And that's why if you look at that 1965 Porsche right there, that 911, and then you look at that 1998 or that 1993 911, all of those body panels are completely and easily interchangeable. Okay, the car just evolved rather than, you know, than started from a clean sheet of paper. And that's also why when you look at a car from 1965, it's timeless and it's beautiful, and that could be in a museum. And then when you look at a car in you know, Ferrari or something from the early 80s or the 80s, whatever. You know, and we have a few on the floor. There's 308 out there. It's cool and it's nostalgic, but you'd be hard pressed to say it's beautiful or timeless. You know, and they're coming around now, and even I'm coming around on them because they've become such a part of kind of the car culture, and I respect them for what they are.
Yeah.
But a Porsche is so much more to me. It's everything.
Do you find, like you mentioned, how
Can I answer the question, or did I go off on a complete?
No, it was perfect. It was
Yeah, it was
perfect.
perfect.
Yeah.
Love it.
How you mentioned how they keep improving, right? If the door handle is not right, they'll fix it.
Right.
Do you find then that the newest Porsches are the best version of it?
Okay, interesting. So, Porsche, for the longest time, most of my Porsche collecting career, that was the common wisdom. What's the best Porsche? The newest Porsche. And that was really true all the way up until 1998.
Okay.
And then in 1999, Porsche switched to the 996, which was the water-cooled platform from the tried and true air-cooled platform. Now, the car was better in every aspect.
Okay.
Let's just say that right now for all the haters who are going to be like, oh, this old guy only likes air-cooled. Air-cooled is what moves me. Air-cooled is what I love about Porsche. The whole idea of evolution, not revolution, is really special to me, very important to me. It's like a core value of myself, of my own. But from that point on, Porsche has done everything they possibly can to recapture the spirit of these early cars. So with some hits, a lot of misses, and the cars, due to safety regulations, due to emissions regulations, have got bigger, proportion-wise. When you look at a new 992 next to that 65, that looks like a toy. It looks like a half-scale car. But that's the original design, as Bootsy Porsche intended it to be. Even if you look at these two titles on the book here, that's a 964, so that's 1990 to 1994, and this is basically a 901, an F model from 1965 up to 1973. You look at the silhouettes to the untrained eye; those are identical cars. Like, oh, that's Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the same book. They're not. There's 30 years separating those cars.
When you speak on the hits and misses, what exactly would make something a hit? What would make something a miss? Technically,
it's so subjective. For me, like people, even people your age, you grew up in an age where the 911 of your childhood was a 996 or a 997. So those cars are nostalgic to you. Those cars are perfect. Those cars are great. And I do have a couple 997s. I will say I do own two liquid cooled 911s. They're not my favorite, but I respect those. And I think 997 was the last of the true Porsche. I think they got back enough to the original cars. They got away from the missteps of the 996. Even just visual clues and design cues that were, absolute table stakes. A Porsche 911 needs to look like this. They just, fine, you need to change the platform to a liquid cooled, do it. But why did you change the headlights? And why did you change all the beautiful hips and the beautiful lines and the beautiful design, and go away from that idea of evolution? And they just started with a clean slate, just like, as I was saying earlier, Ferrari does and Maserati and Lamborghini does. And that's why when you look at a 1999 996 or all the way up to 94, they look like old cars. They look dated,
I like that.
Where did the initial love, though, come for Porsches?
Oh, I know the day, I know the moment. So I was 3 years old, and I know this because I know what year the car was. And I'm October, so it could have been 74, but it was 73. Anyway, I was out front of my house playing. My parents were in the house. It was the 70s, so you were unsupervised at 3, sitting out front of the house. And I was there out with my G.I. Joe or whatever it was that I was playing with. And my neighbor, who was a resident at University of Pennsylvania, I'm from Philadelphia, his name was Panos. I hear him before I even see him, and I hear this noise, and I look up, and I'm like, what is that? And all of a sudden, this 1973 911 Targa pulls up, silver, black interior, and I look like it was a Porsche ad, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that? So I ran down what I call a hill, but when I go back and visit the house, it's not really a hill. It's more of like a lump in the grass. And I ran down the hill, and I'm like, Panos, what is this? And he said, it's a Porsche 911 Targa. And I was like, a what? My 3-year-old brain couldn't even
It was like a spaceship.
Yeah, it was a spaceship, and Porsche was that was another language. And so he told me, and he actually talked to me, and he let me look at the car, and he opened the car, and I realized now, looking back, that Porsche was truly the first thing that I ever chose for myself. It was the first thing, you know, it's like even the G.I. Joe that I was playing with, or whatever it was, the Hot Wheels or the Tonka truck, whatever it was that I was out front playing with when Panos drove up in that 911, my parents gave that to me. They said, oh, you're a boy, here's a G.I. Joe. You're a boy, here's a Tonka truck. Here's some Hot Wheels. And then this 911 drove up and I said, that's me. That's something that I identify with. That's something that I love. And you know, I didn't realize that obviously at the time. I mean, it was already amazing that I was 3 years old and saying like, what is that?
Right.
But and it was a 73 Targa, by the way. Yeah, from that moment on. And it's funny, my parents always, for whatever reasons, fill in the blank, my last name's Goldstein, hated Porsche. It was like, you know, my dad was a car dealer. My dad was a car freak, loved cars, never, you know, had Porsches there. And I was like, okay, well, good. I love this.
Yeah.
And that's the poster I want on my wall, and that's the Hot Wheels that I want, and that's the shirt that I want, and that's the booth that I want to go to at the Philadelphia Car Show. And yeah.
What was your first Porsche?
My first was a 77 white Targa, which is shocking that I had a white car because I'm not a white car guy. But yeah, 77.
Still have it?
No, I wish I did. It was,
That's cool.
You know, here's the thing. We're talking about this way of the new, back then, the newest Porsche is the best Porsche. So, you know, I got this 77 Targa because I could afford it. It was like $12,000, and that same car now is $80,000. That's a 77. But anyway, so I was always looking at the next car. I was always like, I have this now, but one day I'll be able to afford this. One day I'll be able to get this. So I was always looking for the newer one, the newer one, the newer one.
Yeah.
And, you know, quite quickly I was able to trade up and get the newer one and the newer one and the newer one until it got to the point where the newer ones, the things that I liked about the newer ones were the things that were the most like the older ones. So I didn't realize that. Again, all this is in hindsight, and I'm still in the process of turning my collection on its head, and even going back to now, all I collect now is pre-74.
That's cool.
So most of my cars were all 90 to 94, the 964s, these, and now I've gone and I only collect these. That's all I really spend all my time doing. And I started to say earlier, but I never finished the thought because that's what I do. You asked what I do for escape.
Oh yeah.
And that's it. The 901, the early 911s.
Yeah.
It's not really correct to call them 901s, but originally the 911 was called a 901.
Interesting.
And there was some copyright things or trademark things with Peugeot, and Peugeot owned the nomenclature for all cars with 3 digits that had a 0 in the center.
Wow.
And at the Frankfurt Auto Show, when Porsche announced the new 901, Peugeot came up and said, yeah, no, can't do that. And what's really interesting is Peugeot is such an old car company. They existed back when you used to crank a car to start it. And one of their little things was they had the name of the car in the front, whatever the 3 digits were with the O in the center. You stuck the crank in the center of the O and you cranked the car.
That's cool.
So, you know, other lore is that they already ordered all the badges and they had, you know, the 9s and the 0s and the 1s. So they just threw out the 0s and just used 9 ones. But then why didn't they just do 999 or 9919
or
whatever? Who knows what the story is?
That's
Who
cool,
knows if
though.
any of that's true?
Yeah, right.
It actually parallels the story of the Fender Telecaster also, which was originally called the Fender Broadcaster, and that paid homage to Leo Fender's, you know, career, his vocation, which was he was a radio repair guy originally, so broadcasting. And when Fred Gretsch came up to him at the guitar show where he was announcing this new solid body mass-produced guitar, the Broadcaster, said, our most popular drum set is the Gretsch Broadcaster. You can't call this guitar the Broadcaster. And Leo said, well, radio's old news anyway. There's this new thing called television.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we'll just call it the Telecaster.
I love that.
And then there's also a story very similar to the 901 turning into 911 where Leo already had the decals, although there is forensic evidence to verify this, that he already had the decals that said Fender Broadcaster, so all the remaining ones he just cut off Broadcaster. So there's a period of those guitars transitioning between the Broadcaster and the Telecaster that are affectionately known as no-casters because they don't have any caster name on them.
That's
and then in '52 they finally started using the Telecaster.
That's so cool.
Moniker.
When it comes to badass cars, are there any that appreciate like a Porsche?
Porsche.
Porsche,
Sorry,
excuse me.
sorry. I don't mean to be a jerk. But don't ever say that again.
Don't even try.
But yeah, there's tons of cars that appreciate like Porsche. And for so many years, another reason I drove them is because I could afford them. Like for so many years, they're not rare. I mean, a lot of my cars that I personally have are rare, but you got to search for the rare ones.
Yeah.
These were mass produced cars almost from the beginning. Whatever mass produced meant in those early days in the 50s and 60s. But, they never got their due until very recently. Even when I started Walt Grace, I mean, you could buy, a fully restored F-body 911 for $50,000, when I would say a few years ago, Patrick, one of my managers, he used to be, dude, buy 912s. I'm like, oh, that's blasphemy. I would never buy a 912. First of all, I'm looking for a new 912 right now, or not a vintage one. And I was like, oh, that's a 4-cylinder. That's a 911 wannabe. I'm wrong. I'm an idiot. But those cars are now kissing and above $100,000, and they were $12,000.
Wow.
10 years ago, they were $20,000. 5 years ago, and up until recent years, they were they were 50,000. So certain cars are finally starting to appreciate, and I do think that Porsche, the new Porsches, are really dictating why people want the old ones, because like me, people are realizing all the things I like about this car are the things that are most like the old ones. The analog, feel that they simulate through computers and whatever modern technology, is to make them feel, that connection to the road. I don't have to look at a tack on my car when I'm shifting, not that anyone does, but I know every sound of my car.
Yeah.
I know how the synchros are working. I know how everything is on these cars. You become one with these early cars, and that's just completely lost.
It's kind of like playing a guitar that you've had your whole life.
For sure.
You know how the neck feels, you know how the pickups react, and everything about it.
Yeah.
And do you find that you have that same love for Porsches as you do vintage guitars?
I do. So it's interesting. I mentioned before that I'm not a car guy. I'm a Porsche guy.
Yeah.
I am a guitar guy.
Yeah.
I'm an equal opportunity lover, luster, collector, player, knowledgeable to a certain extent on all brands, all guitars. I love them all. Electric is mainly my thing, but I love vintage Martins and vintage Gibsons. So I don't have that connection to any one guitar, not even Gator here that I've had since I was 17. Like,
wow.
I love them, but I've actually sold them once. I did. I sold it. It's a long story, but it's a good story. When we first opened in 2015, the beginning of 2015, an entire family. Now this is when I had Walt Grace shirts, but they were mainly for my staff, and then we had them for sale, but never really sold them. Like, who wants a Walt Grace shirt? What the hell is Walt Grace?
Yeah.
An entire family walked in wearing Walt Grace shirts one day, and I'm like, oh my God, like, what the hell? They're like, oh yeah, we came from Utah, and I don't remember the exact story. I tell the story as if I remember it exactly, but if they're watching now, correct me in the comments, but basically it was like they inherited money, all the kids got money, and each of the kids, one of the stipulations for using the money was they had to travel somewhere they wanted to go, and they had to take their entire family with them. And it turns out that this kid wanted to go to Walt Grace. That was his thing. He had seen us on Instagram,
so cool.
And I guess maybe Facebook at the time, and wanted to go to Walt Grace. But they thought we were a museum. They had no idea that you could actually buy, guitars. So I don't know how. I guess I did a really bad job of, advertising and copywriting on our website. But anyway, they came in, and this kid's playing. He was a good player, but not like, oh my God. Mm-hmm. And then at the time, I had really just opened up maybe a few months earlier, and it was a huge expense opening the place. It was a huge expense getting the cars. It was a huge expense. Everything was huge. So a lot of the guitars I hung on the wall, when I would sell them, I'd be like, oh, let me just go put one of my guitars on the wall just to fill in the...
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it is today where there's thousands of people coming through a day. It was like 5 people a day would come through. So the chances of them wanting, one of my guitars that were up on the top rack was, slim to none. And of course, this kid, Corey, went, what's that? And I was like, oh, well, that's Gator. Gator is my own personal guitar. And he's like, can I play it? And I was like, of course, you could do anything, man. You chose to come to Walt Grace. So he picks up Gator, and he starts playing, and it was like, fuck, what? This kid went from being like an okay player to like, you need that guitar.
Yeah.
Like, that guitar is yours. And they asked how much it was, and at the time, Les Paul Juniors were probably like $7,000 or $7,500. I told him, and he said, "Oh God, I can never afford that," and whatever. And as he's playing, I'm talking to the parents, I'm talking to the family, and I just decide while I'm talking to him, like, this kid has to have Gator. Like, I barely play.
Wow.
I don't play anymore, and those days are long gone. I noodle in my bedroom and in my office. Gator's here, I play. Anyway, so I said to the dad, I said, with your permission, I want to give him Gator. I'm going to charge him full price, but I'm going to do it on a handshake. There's not going to be an invoice. There's not going to be emails hounding him to pay me. He can pay me. He can take a month, a year. He could never pay me, whatever it is. But
wow.
Here's the price. And the dad agreed, and I said, hey man, like, I want you to have this guitar, blah, blah, blah. But here, I'm shaking your hand. And I hope you know what this means, man.
Yeah.
This is a guitar I've had since I was 17, but this guitar belongs with you, not with me. And I want you to take this, and you're going to pay me. And over the next 10 years, I would get like sometimes $5 cash in an envelope. Sometimes I'd get PayPal notifications that he sent me money. Sometimes I'd get, a wire, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, he paid. Not only did he pay off the last dollar of Gator, he sent me his record that he played and performed on vinyl. That's actually in that cabinet behind those guys. That he played Gator on every song and whatever. And for whatever reason, as time went on, I guess he, as a lot of, unfortunately, musicians do, he kind of stopped playing and decided he was going to sell Gator. And a friend of mine recognized the guitar and said, I think I'm looking at Gator.
Wow.
And said, do you want me to try to get it for you? So I don't know if the guy changed his name on this listing because he didn't want me to find out that he was selling my baby or what, but the guy's name was completely different. And they said, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I said, see if is this guy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So he reached out to the guy. He's like, is this so? And he goes, how do you know that name? And he's like, because I'm talking to Bill Goldstein and he wants that guitar. So I ended up getting the guitar back for exactly what I sold it to him for. And at the time, it was probably worth 2 or 3 times that amount. So it was a whole full circle thing. And Gator's now back with me, but I don't even want to say back with his rightful owner because I don't deserve Gator. I really don't play. Guitar is not like riding a bike. At one point, I was, you might consider me, an accomplished player. Now, for the first 5 minutes, you'll think I'm an accomplished player until I start playing the same shit over and over
That's
again.
Funny.
I'm not really worthy of Gator or any of my, really high-end, expensive collection.
Bill, how many guitars are under this roof?
I really don't know. I should probably count that one day so I can answer because people ask me all the time. About 300.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bill, that's a very generous, kind thing you did. That's gonna stick with me for real.
Dude, we're the stewards of these guitars, of these cars. This existed long before I was born and gonna exist long after. And they have their living, breathing. I mean, they're not literally, but they're
they are
living, breathing things. And a song. I mean, just the way he tried all those other guitars,
and that one spoke to him.
But it didn't just speak to him. He and the guitar spoke to me.
You, yeah.
It was insane. And it's amazing how people connect with a car, with a guitar. I mean, my 72 Targa that I have right now, Jonathan, my curator, kept saying, Bill, it was here for sale. We had it for sale. And he's like, Bill, you need to drive that. I'm like, I don't care. First of all, it's aubergine, okay? And I only have black cars. And it was aubergine, which is eggplant. Okay? It's a purple color. I'm like, I don't want that car. Okay, he's like, Bill, you need to drive this car. I'm telling you, it's the best long hood you've ever driven in your life. And I'm like, okay, good. I don't care. I don't want it, okay? And it just didn't speak to me until I took it around until someone wanted it. Someone was interested in buying it.
Okay.
And he had just gone on a test drive, and it was out. So we didn't have to move any cars or anything. It was outside. He goes, dude, will you fucking drive this car? Humor me. And I drove it, and that was like him and Gator. Me and that car, and I will die before that car. I mean, that car, when people ask me if it's for sale, I say it's absolutely for sale. You just got to talk to my kids when I'm dead. Because I will never ever sell that car. That car is my mother calls it my girlfriend. She used to call all my girls, how's your harem doing? How are the girls? Now she's just like, how's your girlfriend?
Yeah.
How's your girl? And also on that car, I learned how to work on cars. I won't let anyone touch.
Oh, so you do your own work on it.
But only on my long hoods.
Yeah.
So I have several long hoods, which are 1965 to 1973. I pretty much do my work on, well, I should say my air cooleds, because I have branched out into my 964s, doing work on those as well. And I'll do basic maintenance on my newer cars, but I do everything. I mean, I'm even putting a full factory, not factory because it's not from the factory, but period correct factory air conditioning into my 1970 right now, which
that's so
I don't
cool.
think anyone's ever done.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, Bill, something I'm sensing about you is things don't really tend to grow on you. They're either it's yes or no, black and white.
My friends, since I was little, always called me superlative man. It's either the greatest thing or the biggest piece of shit ever. I either love it or I fucking hate it. And I'm that way with people too. I either love you or I have no time for you.
So when you see a guitar,
I don't warm up to people. I either love them or hate them from the second I meet them, and that's carried through.
And did you have that self-awareness in your 20s?
I've had that self-awareness, unfortunately, my whole life. I've always known that I am black and white. It's
Larry David-esque.
Very, very David-esque?
Larry David.
Oh, Larry. It's so funny. Everyone says to me, do you watch Curb? And I said, no, I want TV to be an escape. I don't want it to be like looking in a mirror. So I've never seen Curb Your Enthusiasm.
That's funny.
I've seen clips. Oh, sorry, I spit. I've seen clips because people send it to me. It's like, dude, this is you. Oh my God, it's fucking, yeah. And it is. I hate to say it, like not the stereotype.
So when you first found, like you mentioned, when you were 3 years old, that passion for cars, and then
Porsche.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, you're right. Not all cars. Yes. How did your love for guitars come to be then?
Ace Frehley. Kiss.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely. I was not much older than I was when I first discovered Porsche. My sister brought home Kiss Alive 1, and I was like, I didn't even know music or anything. I just saw these characters, with the makeup and everything, and I was like, they had superpowers, and each one had a character. So these were superheroes that played
music,
rock and roll.
Yeah, rock and roll.
So I just wanted to be Ace Frehley more than anything in the world. And I had my makeup when I joined the band. I designed my name was Deuce Conway, which was my stage name, everything. I was going to be in Kiss one day. Yeah, so that was it.
You learned guitar from that point on?
I learned guitar. So no, I was 5 then. I started playing when I was 8.
Okay.
Got my first Les Paul shortly thereafter. My parents got me an acoustic, which was the common thing to do back in the day. Oh, do you want to play guitar? Learn acoustic first. I don't believe in that. I believe if you want your kid to stick with it, let him learn on the sound he hears in his head. Because I heard Shock Me and Rock and Roll All Night, and I'm like, dust in the wind.
Yeah.
It was just totally, it might as well have been like, I love Porsche and you brought me a Toyota. It could not have been further apart.
Yeah.
So nothing against Toyotas, they're great cars, but I just absolutely had to have a Les Paul.
Yeah.
I had to hold it low, and I didn't know that Ace was a complete drunk, so I thought you were supposed to play guitar falling over yourself and whatever. And unfortunately, Ace just passed away last month, but he turned out, fast forward into my late teens up until the day he died, was one of my best friends.
Wow.
So he not only was my idol, he was the person that sent me all these inappropriate memes every day, and the first person to wish me Happy New Year.
That's so cool.
And so it was really
special.
How did you meet him?
He was drunk. Crossing the street at a place called the Coffee Shop in New York City. I was sitting outside with my girlfriend at the time, and my back was to where he was walking, and she said, "Don't turn around, but you have to see this drunk lady walking across the street." And I turn around, she's like, "Don't look." And I said, "That's no drunk lady. That's Ace Frehley." And she was Italian from Rome, from Italy, and she didn't know Kiss. I don't know how, because Kiss was an international phenomenon, but and the hottest band in the world.
Yeah.
And but she didn't know who they were. And I said, "That's Ace Frehley. That's who Ace is named after, my iguana." Who was there. And she's like, "Oh my God, he looks like a woman." And I was like, "No." And so he's just walking by. We're sitting right by the door, and I just went, "Ace!" And I just stuck my hand up, and I'm like, "I'm a big fan, man." And he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah. How about you, sweetie? You a big fan too?" And that was the first interaction I had with Ace. And I'm like, she doesn't know who I'm like talking, whatever. Anyway, so then 5 minutes later, so after explaining to Daphne, this girl I was with, who Ace was, I'm like, that's, I named Ace after him. He's the reason I play guitar. And that's, the guy from Kiss and all that. And she's like, "Oh my God, he looks like Lily Tomlin. He's like an ugly woman." So not that Lily Tomlin's ugly. Sorry if you're watching. Anyway, so while I'm explaining, I hear, "Sir, you can't come out here with the drink." And he said, "No, I'm just going to sit with my friends right here." And I look, and it's Ace, and he wants to come outside with a beer. And so we told him he was going to sit with his friends. So he sits down with us. And just the first thing he says to Daphne, he's like, "So, you didn't answer me. You a big fan? Are you a fan too?" And I was like, "Oh my God." I wasn't like, "Oh my God." I was like, "Answer him, Steph."
Yeah.
It's Frehley. Anyway, it's a very long story, but we ended up hanging out that whole night. The friend that he was waiting for came, didn't know he didn't know us. So he's like, "All right, we going, guys?" And we're going to, Zone DK, which is where we went. And I was about to say, "Oh, no, have fun." And he's like, "You guys coming?" And Ace is like, "Yeah, you guys coming?" I was like, "Sure, Ace Frehley." Like, oh my God. I was 19.
Oh my God.
And yeah, and I mean, Ace died in October, and I mean, I spoke to him the week before, was texting with him, and I mean, really one of my dearest friends.
What a beautiful story. Yeah. So cool. So that whole journey from meeting him, well, even before then, finding guitar because of Kiss,
Right.
then meeting him, becoming a dear friend, that journey throughout your whole youth up until now, did you find that being with someone from Kiss not only like gave you insight and maybe I should do something in music? Was that ever part of it?
No, I was already a musician at that point.
You were already making records and that kind of
I
stuff?
was making records, but I was 19 years old. I was long into my guitar journey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. I even from the time I was 13 years old, I worked in a vintage guitar store in Philadelphia. I started at 13, and by the time I was 13 and a half, I had the keys to the place. I was Zing out the register for all you old folks that know what Zing out.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is, but it's reconciling the register at the end of the day. And from the time I was 13 till I was 18, I worked in a vintage guitar store.
Is that when you started collecting?
Yes, because I was so young they couldn't pay me, so they used to keep a little receipt in the cash register drawer, and every day I would put my hours, and it was towards that Les Paul that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I got a 1979 Les Paul for my first thing, and then afterwards I used to just. I lived at home, so I would just work for guitars. We'll work for guitars.
What's your favorite guitar you have?
My favorite guitar I have is Gator.
Okay.
That's why he's at work with me every day. Certainly not my most expensive, certainly not my most rare, but this is my favorite.
Yeah, it's beauty.
Yeah.
They don't make them like they used to.
Actually,
You think they do still?
I would want to say that, and I have said that forever.
Okay.
So for 30 years, they didn't make them like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Now the new guard at Gibson, they are making them like they used to. They're not, now, again, we had a conversation before this all started as far as exact materials, exact machining, and exact finishes. They're not exact, but man, they're making guitars now that are consistently better than the golden age of guitars. Yeah. Fender has long since done that.
Okay.
Gibson is finally doing that. The new guard, they're just really taking the company, or the guitars, I should say, in such an amazing place. Some new guitars right off the wall. You could buy a guitar that is 95% of a $500,000 guitar.
Are you referring to like those Murphy Lab kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
Murphy Lab guitars are just incredible, and Murph is insane.
Yeah.
He cares like I care.
Yeah.
I've been in the Murphy Lab with Murph while he's sitting there showing someone, did I show you to hit from here, or did I show you to hit from here?
Yeah.
Like it makes a difference.
Something that's really cool about guitars, which is similar in cars but kind of different, they got it right from the beginning.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it's never changed.
Absolutely.
Like the Fender Strat, the Broadcaster, Telecaster has been the same
911.
body. Yeah, the 911, the same shape, same
Volkswagen.
body. Yep, since the beginning.
80s,
All of it.
all the way up to the 560 SL that you see there.
Like the wall surrounding us, all of those bodies were
Are all
created in the
from-
60s,
well, 40s,
50s.
50s,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's amazing. They just nailed it from the
I
jump.
say it all the time.
Yeah.
And not to mention, another parallel is all of the colors were all,
Yeah.
automotive DuPont automotive colors on the guitars back then.
They took inspiration from what
Not
the
just
cars were
inspiration,
doing.
They're the exact
Pantone,
well, there wasn't Pantone.
Yeah.
The DuPont colors. So if you look at a Corvette that's Riverside gold, we have Shoreline gold on the guitar side.
Wow.
Same.
Yeah.
They just changed the name a little bit.
I want to back up a little bit to when you had that epiphany where you did quit your job and you decided I'm going to start a car and guitar shop.
Right.
What was that process and journey like to even like what was like the first step?
So everything just fell into place. And, my mother always says there's no such thing as a overnight success.
Yeah.
This was. And
Really?
it really just all fell into place. I had a friend who had the original space that we were in. And unfortunately, and again, Wynwood was like a place where you went. You could get huge spaces. Our original space was from 26th Street all the way to 27th Street, a city block long. And, he's paying like $8,000 a month, but he was in not a long-term lease, but he was in a lease. So he was like, hey, I have an idea. I told him the idea that I had for this thing. He's like, you could take my space, So instantly I had a space.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys that I worked actually for at Sapient, when I told him I was leaving, he's like, not without me, you're not. And he came on. He didn't leave, and ultimately didn't leave. And ultimately, even before we opened, I bought him out. But he was my partner at the beginning.
Wow.
And just everything fell into place, and we built the place out. And then I had to buy him out for his half of the construction. And so I've never had a partner. I mean, he was a partner early days.
And the collection started all with your
Oh my God.
right?
How many did you have?
Oh, I've been collecting my whole life, and except for the few unfortunate moments of paying rent in New York, at some point, like I sold my first Les Paul, that '79 Les Paul. I pretty much just collected. I wasn't a collector. I just collected guitars.
Yeah.
Like people collect, unintentionally. I was more of a hoarder, but I also had really good taste, so I had an amazing collection.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a curated collection. It was just like I know what I'm doing.
It was just love.
Yeah. So when I started, I probably had 50 guitars, and it was such a huge expense building the first place out. All just cash. So again, I didn't think it was going to be what it turned into. So I put my whole lifelong collection on the wall, and I opened during Art Basel, December 3rd, 2015, and I didn't know that I was going to have all these billionaires and all these art collectors and all these people that appreciated what was hanging on the walls. And not only did we sell the first day a 72 Ferrari Dino GTS, we also sold almost my entire guitar collection.
Wow.
The first day.
And it was not the plan. It was just for pictures. So, yeah.
Then you quickly had to get on reverb and
It was crazy. It was crazy. I used to go what we used to, affectionately known as guitar safari. Like I used to go hunting for guitars. Now it's a common term. It wasn't a common term. I think Joe Bonamassa really popularized that term. But even before Joe was I don't know if before Joe was using it, before I ever heard Joe use it, don't call me Joe. I don't know. But anyway, I was going to do a show actually with Porsche of me driving around in vintage Porsches. And it was going to be called Guitar Safari, looking for vintage guitars.
That's
but
cool.
The same thing I told you guys, how much I hate and how apparent it is to all your viewers, how much I hate being on camera. Yeah. I chose not to do that show for that reason.
Not too late.
Oh, no, I'm terrified.
Yeah. Well, something I love about this place is how inviting it is. Like, everyone just walks in. They're open to try anything they want, look at the cars, take pictures.
Yeah.
It's as much as a museum and like a hangout. You have the coffee shop up front, and people just come here to like appreciate the art of it. Something I read on your website is that not only is it's not necessarily a shop, but it's more of like a gallery where you can appreciate the guitar.
The artistry. And
exactly.
That's the point. That's why, like, when you go in the Guitar Center, all the guitars are on the wall, 3/4 diagonally, maximizing wall space. How many widgets, how many things can we put in? And all of our guitars are taking up precious
space.
Yeah. We have probably half the amount of guitars we could fit on those walls, but I want people who aren't guitar players to come in and appreciate them for the art that they are. People come in all the time and say, "What? Any famous guitar players play these guitars?" And a lot of times there are those guitars just because of the nature of these expensive guitars and artists played them. But we always say we don't care about who played them, we care about who made them. So we'll celebrate, Tadia Gomez and Abigail Ybarra and all of these people that worked and built these Fender Stratocasters and Telecasters and, Gibson Les Pauls and all of that. But we don't really care about who played them.
Something else that I realized after reading about Walt Grace online, it's really beautiful what you guys do, that you consider yourself people that help people find their dreams. You need people that have a dream guitar or dream guitar.
Right.
You'll be the middleman to like help them get there and find that. What's that
we
like?
call ourselves dream facilitators.
Okay.
And it's something that, sitting in that chair when I'm interviewing potential hires, I say to them, day one, if you sell, you're fired. Okay, we don't sell, we facilitate.
That's so good.
I like that.
Okay? And if someone's on the fence and they can't decide about a car or a guitar, Guitar Center would be like, you convince them, you tell them that that's the best
Yeah.
guitar. And I don't know that to be true.
Yeah,
but from what I hear, that's what
I've
other
experienced
places
that.
do. And for us, I say, listen, if someone's on the fence, encourage them to leave, encourage them to go home, and encourage them to sleep on it.
Yeah.
Okay? And if they can sleep, then that car or guitar wasn't for them.
Yeah.
They need to be up all fucking night worrying that someone's going to get here before they do and get it before they do in the morning. Then they know it's their guitar. And that at that point will facilitate. And facilitate doesn't just mean hand it to them and say, oh, this is the price and whatever. Like, we make sure, like, if a kid's eyes are wide enough and the kid's like, oh, I'm a Berkeley student, I can't afford that, I'll lose money on a fucking guitar. I do care because I care.
Yeah.
I will make sure that car is going home with that kid, or that, it doesn't have to be a kid. It could be someone who just started playing guitar at 60 during COVID and whatever. And I'll sit in that chair also. And the reverse of that is true. And I'll sit in that chair, and my guys know that when they get a text from me that says, no fucking way, it means that guy is not getting that guitar or that car, because this guy doesn't know what he's even looking at. He's just looking at the price tag. I'll take this. Like, no, he's not. And then my guys will look up and be like, got you. We know.
Yeah.
Because it's so important to us. And it's so, but also is why I say this whole thing of do what you like for a living, not what you love. You got to say what you love for yourself, because you can't care this much. It's a business. Now, my $8,000 a month rent, when I started this, I'm not going to say what my rent is now, but it's no longer $8,000.
Yeah.
I got to ring the register, but it's not a good business model to like tell someone to go home and sleep on it. Or when someone walks in and says, what do you got for $5,000? And we're like, is there a reason you want to spend $5,000? Oh, I just thought that's a good place to start. And I'm like, all right, well, let's start at the beginning. That's a really good place to start. Is there, something in your mind? No, I just want to start playing, and and I'll show them a Mexican telly or Strat that's just as good as the custom shop for that person right now, and it might even be better for them.
Yeah.
So that's a horrible business model. And I started saying earlier, now that we're starting to talk to investors and real business people, I'm a liability. They're like, what do you mean you send people away? What do you mean? And it's every conversation that we have is like, all right, and I know that the conversations after I'm not in the room are like, all right, we got to let Bill nowhere near the business side of things, because it's, I don't want it to ever someone to feel like they got the wrong car or guitar, or they, felt that they were pressured into it, or they were just dialogued in any way.
That's probably another reason why people love it here so much, because it's truthful. Yeah. It's real.
And it's not a sales tactic, because a lot of people follow up when I say that to them with, oh yeah, and then they come back, and that's a great sales tactic. And it's like, no, dude, I don't know how to say it, because I guess it is a great sales tactic, but it's not a sales tactic.
No,
It results in repeat customers and repeat sales, but it's absolutely not a strategized. I was in advertising for so long where I sat in boardrooms and said, how do we prey on people's weaknesses and their insecurities?
Yeah.
And how do we push those buttons to make them buy our products? Okay. And that's also why we don't do advertising.
Yeah.
It's for me, it was like, when I had my daughters, I was like, I would see these little girls and I was like, I want to be the guy that these kids think I am. And trust me, they don't think that I trick people for a living.
No, well said.
So when I opened Walt Grace, like originally I was like, no advertising. It's going to be word of mouth. It's going to be this campfire model where everyone gathers around the warmth. They gather around and they tell stories and they discuss things and they talk about the one that got away, or their neighbor's car, or their uncle's car, or how much their dad would love this place. That's the model. It's still the model to this day. Mm-hmm. But trust me, investors do not like that. And that's the place I find myself in now. It's like, well, do I want to sell my soul or Walt Grace's soul? Because again, it's so much bigger than me.
Yeah.
I get all the credit for Walt Grace, but trust me, it's all of us. I had the original shower idea, but this came to life from, Jonathan and Patrick and Tina and, even the guys in the cafe. I don't want to say even the guys in the cafe team, and just my guys on the floor. It's, when you read the reviews, because again, you can get these cars other places. You can get these guitars from Sweetwater. You can get them from Guitar Center. Mm-hmm. But all the reviews are always like about the people, about the experience. And that's what we want. So, it's I don't remember what I started to say when I went off on this sentimental tangent about my team, but
No, it takes a team.
Well, Bill, this experience has been absolutely unforgettable.
Well, I have one more thing real quick.
Go ahead.
You guys are moving to Nashville. So how
we're
not
expanding
moving,
to
expanding
Nashville.
to
Yes.
Nashville. How do you plan on bringing this same energy to Nashville, Tennessee, where it's such a music hub?
So how do we bring the same energy?
Well, that and how'd that come to be even?
Oh wow! So we always say about Miami, it's that we're successful in spite of ourselves, or in spite of Miami. Miami's probably the single worst place in the world to open a vintage anything, let alone vintage cars and vintage guitars.
Okay.
Because first of all, it's not. Even though people think of it as a music city, it's not a music city. It's not a lot of live music
No.
like in New York or Nashville or most cities in the world. You can walk into from bar to bar to bar and it's live music, restaurant to restaurant. You go to the airport in Nashville, there's live music in
Everywhere.
the airport.
Yeah.
So it's not really a live music city. It's certainly not a vintage car culture. I mean, when we first opened, I remember this woman's talking to me and she's asking, oh, this car's so beautiful and this and that. And she's just like, is it new? I said, no, it's a 1962. She goes, this is a used car? And she backed away. And I like she was going to get some kind of used disease. And then she was like, stand back, everyone. No, she didn't say that.
No.
But that was her attitude. Like, stand back, everyone. This is used, because New York. Miami is all about the latest, greatest, shiniest object. It's if you have a 2025 right now, as we go into 2026, that car's old.
Yeah.
I had a Bentley Bentayga, which was a misstep in my life at one point, and I had the old taillights because I hated the new taillights. I actually went out of my way to find the previous model, and everyone's like, "Oh, you have the old model." I'm like, it's a fucking Bentley Bentayga. Not that that's so cool or anything, but like, really, that's what you noticed, that I have the old taillights, because that's Miami. And so anyway, now that I'm done dissing on Miami, this is the worst place in the world to open this business.
Okay.
But Nashville is the best place in
Yeah.
the world. So there's an amazing car culture. There's an amazing appreciation for all the things that we've talked about today. They get the idea of evolution. They get the idea of heritage and history. There's so many. They celebrate their history. They celebrate the history of music. They celebrate vintage guitars. They celebrate everyone's so real and everything's so authentic there. So it's a perfect place for Walt Grace. And it's Music City and we sell guitars.
Yeah. When do you guys plan on opening?
So we planned to open 2 years ago. There's been like unbelievable amounts of permitting and zoning and all of that. And then I've had a few false starts in all.
Happens.
But yeah, it's just been, people that were involved that, again, because I'm not a money guy, I just, I'm a passionate car and guitar guy, or Porsche and guitar guy. And, but I brought people in to help me do this thing. And I've had a few false starts because of that. We're on track now. I'm saying end of summer, probably this time next year.
Perfect.
We'll be open and rolling.
Beautiful.
But we're breaking ground within the next couple of weeks.
Well, Bill, we could talk cars and guitars all day long. We appreciate your time today. It's been an absolute joy.
Evan,
Merrick.
Yeah, this has been amazing. I mean, Ethan and I've been
following you guys online for like a couple years
three
now.
or 4 years ago.
And we love it.
Been special, so thank you so much.
Thank you
Yeah,
guys.
Thanks for opening your door. I mean, in the VIP suite here, we got it good.
Yeah.
This is an incredible store, incredible business, and keep up the great work.
Thank you guys. Best of luck to you guys as well.
Thanks, Bill.
Very cool. I love what you have going on here.
Thanks for having us.
People watching cannot see this setup they have, but it's pretty impressive.
We got some amazing people helping us out. And for Bill, anyone who wants to keep up with you guys and find you guys online, where can they find you?
Well, of course, our website, www.waltgracevintage.com, and then on Instagram and Facebook at Walt Grace Vintage, and that's pretty much it. Oh, and our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Also Walt Grace Vintage.
Bill, keep kicking ass, bro.
Yeah.
You too. You guys as well. Love what you guys are doing.